Grover Cleveland Baxter Jr. could always spot a liar. As he likes to tell it, he served in the Navy during World War II, but his interest in deception soon led him to the Army Counterintelligence Corps, where he specialized in hypno and narco interrogation, aka truth serums. Then, in 1948, he joined the CIA, where he claimed he founded the agency's polygraph program. A decade later, Baxter moved to New York and then opened the Baxter School of Lie Detection, where he taught NYPD detectives and FBI agents. He testified in courtrooms and before Congress, and his famed Baxter Zone Comparison Technique, a methodology for conducting polygraphs, is still widely used. Baxter's success made him a law enforcement legend, but he was always happier proving people innocent. I like to think of the polygraph, he once said, as a truth detector. But this was all a prelude to Baxter's real-life work, which began in the early morning hours of February 2nd, 1966. Baxter had been up all night in his office on West 46th Street and had just poured himself a cup of coffee when he noticed a houseplant, a Dracaena fragrans, his secretary brought to brighten the office. On a lark, Baxter, who had a playful streak that belied his military background, he studied astrology, dabbled with LSD, and supposedly spent a summer as a stunt diver in a circus, decided to hook the plant up to his lie detection machine. In human subjects, a polygraph measures three things: pulse, respiration rate, and galvanic skin response, otherwise known as perspiration. If you're worried about being caught in a lie, your levels will spike or dip. Baxter wanted to induce a similar anxiety in the plant, so he decided to set one of its leaves on fire. But before he could even get a match, the polygraph registered an intense reaction on the part of the Dracaena. To Baxter, the implication was as indisputable as it was unbelievable. Not only had the plant demonstrated fear, it had also read his mind. Baxter went on experimenting until the end, expanding his theory of non-human consciousness to encompass chicken eggs and even sperm, forever finding more proof of what he called the, quote, fundamental attunement between living things, end quote. And that's an article by Josh Eels via the New York Times Magazine. Hi, this is Sarah Russell, your microdose host, here with your weekly mood boost and tools for transformation. And in today's episode, we'll be exploring, are plants conscious? Now, according to one of my dearest friends, yes, they are. Absolutely 100%. How could you even ask that question? This comes up when we're road tripping together, when we're gardening, and the psychonaut in me wants to believe this is true, but I also wanted to check in and see what science had to say about this. So first, I want to define consciousness, and the dictionary defines consciousness as the state of being awake and aware of one's surroundings. So the question that we're exploring, right, is are plants just passively responding to environmental forces, doing their photosynthesis thing kind of automatically, or are they awake and aware and engaging in complex behaviors, responding to their environment in a sophisticated way? Now, we know that plants sense, feel, and respond to changes in their internal and external environment. But how are they crafting those responses, and how are we interpreting those responses? So Stephen Herod Buhner wrote the book Plant Intelligence in the Imaginal Realm. And in it, he says, quote, in complex, conscious organisms like humans and most animals, the head or anterior pole of the body is the part that processes information. The posterior pole, the part that engages in sexual reproduction and excretion of waste. From that orientation, plants live with their heads in the earth and their asses in the air. If you take the cutting of a plant from one location and plant it in another, as the neural system of the plant intelligence develops in the soil, analyzing and feeling its surroundings all the while, it alters, as it learns, the shape and formation of emerging neural net and the plant body it develops. So, thinking about the plant's brain or its neural system in its roots and all its reproductive bits are just kind of waving around in the air like its leaves and its flowers, just being sexy time out in the open for everybody to see. So speaking of the neural system, plants use similar neurotransmitters like we do, including glutamate and GABA. And in all of this, what's most interesting for me in studying plant consciousness is how it disrupts the old school narrative of eat or be eaten, kill or be killed, survival of the fittest, and talks about a much more cooperative way of evolution creating positive outcomes. So, for instance, if a plant senses that another plant in its mycelial network is sick or ill in some way, it will create medicinal compounds that it will send through the mycelial network in order to heal that plant. And older plants will send out volatiles to younger plants that contain chemical information about predators in the area. So Stephen Buhner talks about this in his book, where there's this bean plant, and a particular kind of spider mite comes and starts munching on the bean plant. That plant will analyze the saliva from that specific kind of spider mite. It will then produce a pheromone that it sends out through its leaves to attract the particular kind of predator that wants to come and munch on that spider mite. So older plants consciously send this information along to younger plants. So the younger plants have this information. So we have plants sending out healing compounds through the mycelial network. We have older plants passing important information on to younger plants. And then we have these plants also helping other predators in the environment know when there's a tasty snack available. So this is actually a great survival strategy because it allows everything in the eco range, the bugs, the plants, the animals, to be able to adapt to their environment more efficiently so that they can have a better living experience. And that's really, really different than everything being in competition with everything else. And just the biggest bully is the one that gets to pass on their evolutionary genes. No, thank you. Moving on. So what would it mean for our consciousness to accept that plants are conscious? How does their version of consciousness impact how we interpret ecosystems and adaptability and evolution and survival? You know, mushrooms aren't just good for your body. They can teach you a thing or two. What would it mean to re-examine what it means to be sentient? Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, go ahead and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else that you listen. You can also check out trendswithbenefits.com to read all of our written work and to sign up for our weekly newsletter. If you would like some relationship advice, go ahead and send a short voice memo to podcast@mudwtr.com. I'd love to help you out on this podcast, give you some support, answer some of your questions. And I'm very excited to be able to offer you a discount code because Mudwater has a new product. It is a mushroom boost that supports immunity, vitality, and mental sharpness. This boost contains 8 different mushrooms, including reishi, the mushroom of immortality, one of my favorites, and mycelium, which we were just talking about how it connects all of us. And who knows what you might learn by consuming a little bit more mycelium. So you can use the code BOOST25 for 25% off your first order of the mushroom boost. Stay conscious, stay present, stay amazed.